then there's that whole, my least favorite thing that people say, we got to expect the unexpected.
Oh, yeah. I wore 2 helmets today.
I don't know. I don't know how to do that. This is the Wildfire Lessons Podcast, where we promote learning by revealing the complexity and risk in the wildland fire service. We share the lessons. The learning that follows is up to you.
Hi, I'm Erik, Apland, Field Operations Specialist at the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. On today's episode, I talk with Lessons Learned Center analyst Travis Dotson about outlier incidents on wildland fires. During the conversation, we talk about incidents reported to us this year so far that represent hazards we don't often talk about in the context of wildland fire. We talk about the specific lessons in these reports, as well as overall lessons about responding to unexpected incidents. We also touch on the importance of reporting and how just one report can create a new opportunity for learning in the wildland fire service. I hope you enjoy.
All right. Hello. This is Travis Dotson, analyst at the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center, and welcome to the Wildfire Lessons podcast. And today I'm joined by Erik. Erik, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we are talking about outlier events that happen on wildland fires.
Ooh, outliers. What does that mean?
Good question. There's a statistical definition, but I have the definition from the Oxford English Dictionary, which they invented English.
Oh yeah, I think that's a credible source. I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. So they have it as a thing detached from the main body or system, differing from all other members of a particular group. That's what they have as kind of the generic definition of an outlier.
That means I'm an outlier, right?
Yes.
I'm special. I'm different.
You are detached from the main body and system. I would agree.
We're all special in our own way.
Yeah, some are more special than others.
That's right. Well, cool. So in terms of wildland fire and our scope or sideboards at the Lessons Learned Center, we deal with incidents, accidents, that kind of stuff. So really we're talking about things that when they come in, we go, that's not I don't know, maybe we should talk about what aren't outliers from our perspective.
Right. Absolutely. Because to some extent, an accident happening, most fires, most shifts, most firefighters, things basically go to plan and they get home and all that.
Ooh.
So accidents themselves are rare is a subjective term, but
yeah.
somewhat rare, some rarer than others. But I would say an outlier would not be a vehicle accident. Sure. Or someone or something being hit by a tree or a tree limb, someone being burned. Those are thankfully, rare enough, but not, but those are kind of the expected things that typically happen, right?
But if we were to look back at all the reports that we have gotten, again, reporting is different than actuality, right? The things that happen up there, but the things that people typically write reports on is like entrapments and getting hit by a tree and UTV tipping over. Those are all the more common things that we see. Somebody stepping in an ash pit and getting a burn injury, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Every so often, there's something that comes in where we're like, don't see that very often. Like maybe the ultimate of all times of the outliers has got to be the snake on the helicopter.
Yeah.
We've only ever had that reported one time.
Right. I wonder though, if it has happened, please tell us. If this has happened to you.
All the heli-tech people are like, oh, that is like every other week, man.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a snake protocol. And I mean, part of what triggered this is we got some recently that got us to thinking about this. But before we dive into the actual incidents, I want to tackle a little bit of this. What does it all mean? not quite. You're like, oh man, don't spring that on me.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute.
Yeah. No, just kind of like, well, okay, how do we deal with outliers, and what are the of course I want to say lessons, and maybe dive in a little bit to the reporting side of it. You know what I mean? Like how things happen. People are always really interested in what are the trends? You guys see all the stuff that's coming in, so what are the trends? And you know, like what is it that people are asking? What do they mean when they say that? Because trends is another one of those words where it's like, well, there's a mathematical definition to it, and then there's what we mean when we say that.
Exactly. Well, what makes this year different than other years? Maybe.
Sure.
What's increasing? Yeah.
And how do I gain an edge? How do I, you know? I'm always like, you know, because the answer for so many things is like, yeah, man, you never know. You got to have superhuman essay, keep your head on a swivel. All of that is often the answer for when weird things happen. And I think sometimes we're looking for an edge. We want to know. I think that's a hard thing to do.
Absolutely.
And then there's other times where it's like, oh no, actually, as we have begun to use UTVs more, certain things have popped up, and we're just like, because we're using UTVs more, we're seeing this very specific thing because it's a relatively new, right, thing. Of course, we're running into things that we just didn't think of.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up is how when we made that transition from using ATVs to UTVs much more often all over the country, we started seeing this pop up, and you could say that's a trend, and I think it is because it wasn't there before. But it's because it wasn't there before because we weren't really using them. And so now you see this big increase. And if you didn't have any context for that, you'd be like, oh my God, UTVs. We didn't have any UTV accidents in the 1950s. And now all of a sudden it's happening all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing with like fuel geysering, right? That's a good, like the first few, you know, we say first, they were outliers. Whereas now, if somebody sends us a fuel geysering report, like, well, it happened again. Like it's no longer an outlier.
No.
But those first few, and the realization that, like, I remember when it was like, wait a minute, like this is a thing. And that's the power of reporting. And the example we were talking about earlier of like, you know, I remember a few years back where it was a year where we had a handful of chainsaw cut injuries to swampers.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion about why this trend was happening, that all the swampers were getting cut. And that invites lots of speculation. Right. Oh man, people were real quick to what do you think was the thing that we heard a lot of? Like, why are the swampers getting cut?
Well, I know I have my favorite one. My favorite explanation that I remember hearing and thinking, boy, I don't think that's it. Changing workforce.
Yeah.
Is one. Yeah.
It's the city kids. It's the city kids.
Yep.
They don't know how to be around chainsaws. You know, and again, that to me sounds like a pre-existing perspective. That they're looking to fit in. You know, and it's, you know, it's entirely possible that there's something there. We don't, we at the Lessons Learned Center certainly can't prove that or anything like that, right? We just happen to get a handful of reports in a calendar year that had that, and that's where I was going to talk about. This is that danger. I guess the danger is always in the interpretation, but I was describing a scenario where like somebody maybe similar to that, but maybe it has to do with chaps. And I've seen this happen before too, where chaps get cut. And it's very easy to just be like, oh, we nicked some chaps.
Yep.
Whatever your local system is for dealing with that, whether it's you're off the saw or, hey, let's gather around and talk about it or whatever. But it'd be easy to just deal with it locally, move on. Nobody else knows about that. Somebody else might say, hey, maybe we should do one of those rapid lesson sharing things, right? And so they take a picture of the Kevlar pulled out and they write up a little simple thing, send it to the Lessons Learned Center. We put it out, email it to thousands of people. People see it, and say that happens in January on a thinning project. And then 2 months later, it happens on a different district. And because they saw that other one, they're like, hey, isn't this a thing that we should write up, right? They wouldn't have otherwise sent it in. Yes. But because they saw that other one, they take a picture, same thing. And now you've got 2 events of chaps being cut. And now, more people have seen that second one. And so as it happens, it gets reported more. So it's like reporting spurs reporting. And then if you interpret that as, and that just didn't happen the previous year.
Yeah, right.
It's easy to be like, well, everybody's cutting their chaps now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the inexperienced, and in reality, it's just people doing exactly what we want them to do, which is, hey, share your lessons. Anyway, I just feel like it's important to, acknowledge that all the different nuance around reporting, right? the good and the bad and the potential, I don't know if it's misinterpretation or just, there's just all that trouble with us making sense of it, which again is a good thing. We want people to ask questions and try and make sense. And then that brings us back to, okay, so what are the lessons, or what happens when we get something that we haven't seen for a while? There's the real specific lesson of like, okay, now always check the helicopter to make sure there's no snakes in there before you fly away.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate lesson. But there's that whole, my least favorite thing that people say, we got to expect the unexpected.
Oh yeah. I wore 2 helmets today.
I don't know. I don't know how to do that.
No. Unless it means I think it's kind of a weird saying because it's unclear exactly what it means. And on its face, it seems like it actually is impossible. Like it's a internally inconsistent sort of, but, it could mean like create layers of mitigation or something like that.
Sure.
Or in that respect, I guess I would agree, but it's kind of a funky way to put it, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's more about the reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like you should have a practiced way of responding to surprising events, especially if they deal with injuries, you know what I mean? And that's things that we have gotten better at. Like, I think the medical incident report is a way of being prepared for something that you're not really able to predict.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, we really do deal in low probability events. I mean, even the things that we think of as being the most common hazards that are most commonly realized, they still are pretty low probability. And if you take it into account, like, okay, well, so say someone cut themselves with a saw on this particular fire. Well, there's 3,000 people on this fire, and
for sure.
50 miles of line and 10 divisions. So which division, which crew, where were they? Like, there's a huge amount of variables involved that kind of play into that weird probability thing.
Yeah. And that's, man, so many different ways that this conversation could go.
Yeah, totally.
But in our lane, this thing about learning and sharing lessons and implementing and all of that kind of stuff, I think there's benefit in bringing this stuff up, especially these more recent events that are from this year, 2025, and some of the specific lessons. And sometimes it's like reminders, should we jump into the first incident? You got anything else to say about outliers and risk? And
I don't think I do. No, I think those were kind of the key pieces I wanted to talk about. I think in particular that the thing about reporting and getting an understanding out there that what you see coming from us or elsewhere, but say in our emails, is just what's been reported to us and represents a small percentage of what happens, only the things that are actually reported. And so it's hard to say what the rates of various things are, particularly when there isn't an injury involved. Then it's like you can have 100 people cut their chaps and only one time did it pull the chaps over and cut their leg, and that's the one that was reported. So it's very hard to get at those types of things like you were talking about with trends. That's a very tricky thing, and the difference between reality and reporting is crucial to understand.
Yeah, and sometimes it's irrelevant because the lessons are so intuitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are times when it's like, yeah, we don't care how many times it has happened or hasn't happened because we can see the potential for it. And we've got this real engineering type fix. Like my favorite was like the crew that sent us an RLS really early on in the fuel geysering phenomenon. And they just said, yeah, our crew policy is they use a rag. So
over the cap. Yeah.
Over the cap. They just put a rag. Like every time you open it, just put a rag over the top.
There you go. Yeah.
And meanwhile, we're all just like, oh, why does it happen? And let's take the venting and we'll talk to the chainsaw company and all that stuff. Meanwhile, these guys are out there cutting line and just like putting a rag over the cap. And so sometimes the lesson is the more which again is our focus. And so and you used a term earlier that is another kind of loaded thing, which is rate, because there is a way to get a rate in the math world. And it's way harder than we think. That's why a lot of times we can't say what our rate of X, Y, and Z is, because we if we wanted a rate of how often firefighters get hit by trees while they are cutting trees, we would have to record every single time they didn't get hit by trees. So every tree that got cut down, we'd have to record that.
Yeah. So
that we could say, well, for every, it's kind of like miles driven, right? With the you see that statistic all the time, like
which is handy because you have an odometer.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's miles driven, fatalities per miles driven, or accidents per miles driven, right? That per whatever, we would have to do that with trees, per trees cut. And maybe a crew could do that. They could just be like, all right, everybody write down every tree that you fall.
Yeah.
But it would only be true for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'd be like, they could go years and years and years, hopefully years and years and years without anybody ever getting hit by a tree.
Absolutely.
And they would record thousands of trees.
Yeah.
That were cut down. I mean, that's what I would expect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me as well. Definitely.
Yes, I guess that is to support what you were saying. It's just like, hey, there's some context with what you see from us, and asking for trends and all of that stuff. And sometimes the lesson is just like, oh man, that makes total sense. We should probably pull the skid plate of our UTV and look in there for all the dry material that could catch on fire. Sometimes the lesson is just, and I think we've got a couple of those today. Yeah,
absolutely. Which is probably a good way to transition to what we got. Getting good at this podcast thing.
It doesn't count if you point it out, though. If you're just like, hey, did you see how good that was? Right, then it like erases it. No, it wasn't. Like, it was me. But
okay, this is an edit point, then.
Or not. It's authenticity.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. So we got a couple of incidents involving electricity, which is not something that's unheard of, right? People get power lines draped over engines or contact power lines, but these cases were different. Two cases where we had firefighters who received shocks through touching wood, which to me was very surprising. So the first one, the Three Creeks fire, that was up in Southwest Washington, and they get dispatched to a fire. They don't really see any fire, but there's a bunch of smoking trees, and my understanding is they're kind of hand feeling for heat inside the tree, like figuring out what's going on. And while this person is touching inside of a tree, they feel a jolt from electricity.
And it was like, if I understand it right, the tree was growing up underneath some standing
power lines. I think the crown
lines
was in contact with live lines. Yeah.
And a little bit of context there, when this engine crew got there was already resources there. And I want to say they were described as like the more of the structure world, municipal resources, and the power company folks.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Did you get that?
Yeah, you're totally right.
And so it just frames, you know what I mean? Like, I think what happens in my mind as an engine captain is like, oh, phew, power companies here, they got that all.
It's an assumption, but who wouldn't make that assumption?
Right. And then their assignment is, you know, because somebody else is spraying water on the smoking trees, their assignment is, hey, cut line and mop up, basically. You know, do the real extinguishment, to, you know what I mean? Like, make the smoke go away and the heat gone. And a normal process of that is, and it was described as a hollow tree, right? They're just like, yeah, let me see if there's any heat left in there.
Yeah. Bad enough that I did describe it as an electrical burn. Like, it wasn't just a sudden, like, whoa, you know, like when you touch a fence. Worse than that, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. That's my reaction, right? When I hear that, I'm just like, oh, I'm like, it's scary to me, because I can see myself doing that same thing. Like, hey, I want to get out there and show that I'm, you know, willing to do the work and get in there, get it done. And especially if I made that, that assumption of like the power company is here. So that's already been dealt with. And I still just don't even, you know what I mean? I get the caution of, hey, a tree has grown up and is touching a line, but I still didn't quite, I don't expect that the tree's touching the line, so if I go and touch the tree, I'm going to get that.
That's not a thing I've ever experienced or heard of. I mean, there's a reason why we don't make, like, why the wires in your house aren't made out of wood, you know? Pretty bad conductor of electricity.
You know, they also described like, hey, as soon as that happened, then they all backed off. They all were like, whoa, you know, they recognized the hazard. They started treating the patient, got him to the hospital, and as you would expect. But yeah, they did describe it as he was diagnosed with an electrical burn, which is super scary, because electricity going through your body can do weird things. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff, and dangerous.
Oh yeah, I mean, we run on electricity, right? I mean, it could really mess you up. Yeah.
Or do internal damage. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That kind of stuff. So
no, totally.
And so again, they have some real specific lessons in there, like, you know, man, I always like when I see the thing about, I always interpret the lesson as make friends and maintain your friendships.
Yeah.
Right. With the power, whatever your local utility folks are, like, man, get to know them before the bad thing. Go over, talk to them. Hey, we respond to fires. What do you guys suggest? Whatever that is, so that you have some sort of ease when you roll up and you're just like, hey, that's kind of close to the power line. Let's just go ahead and call, you know, Amy over there at that's more likely to happen than if we're just like, I don't know what the number is for, like, who do we even call for this? Like, just do some of
Right.
that homework
Exactly.
ahead of time.
Yeah. I remember I worked at a place, it was quite a long time ago now, but, and part of our kind of initial, like all the firefighters were coming on at the beginning of the season, and they kind of had this big, like everybody was there, the engines, the helitack crew, everybody. And, part of that, like 2-day long training, maybe it was, an orientation to the park, was they had a representative or maybe two from the power company come out and give a presentation on, and a pretty hands-on one actually too, about understanding power lines and like counting insulators on power lines and all that kind of stuff. It was really good. This is at Grand Canyon. Really, really great. So it was like, even if I didn't retain all of the pieces, and I wish I did, because it'd be cool to like be able to look up at a power line and just like, oh, that's this many volts, whatever. That's long gone. But
that
but
one's really going to hurt when it hits.
Yeah, exactly. When you touch the tree. But just knowing that, like, oh, okay, so that this is the power company, this is their number, you know, I now have a card from the person that I met, you know. Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, you know, people that have done that with the local air ambulance private company, where it's like, oh yeah, every year now they come out and they, you know, sometimes they even fly the ship over and land and let us go through it and stuff like that. And we know a couple of the pilots, and you know what I mean? Like, those are real important relationships to build ahead of time. And in some places like you're describing, like, wow, how cool is that? That is recognized, and usually that comes from lessons, right? Like, so,
yeah, probably they had something happen.
Like, oh, and that's the beauty of this reporting, right? Is that this can serve as that catalyst for that district or whatever that hasn't done that yet, and they can be like, who is the power? Like, who would we call? I think in a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, their office is down there on this road. Let's just go see.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because it could be like, oh, it's the big power company, you know, the statewide power company or whatever. But they have local representatives and you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then there's just the universal caution lesson, which is like, that's another potential hazard that, you know, you can rule it out when there's clearly no power lines there. Yeah. But when there are, like the picture they sent him, is like, there's a pole right there by the smoking tree. And like the wires go right above where the work is happening. Like, just that in itself, you roll up on that and you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's akin to, you show up to a grass fire and it's just this big old open field. All right. But you show up to that very same place and there's mailboxes or, you know, even houses. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different scenario. You have a different set of concerns.
That's right. That's the biggest thing for me personally, is knowing that this could happen. That really, it just triggers something new to look for, which I didn't really know to look for before. I mean, power or trees growing up into power lines and having the limbs intermixed with the lines is, I mean, that is so common. Yeah. So common. But just the thought now, you know, gives me pause the next time I were to see something like this. I think that alone is just, it's so important, and it's so amazing that they decided to write this report and send it into us, because it's a whole new hazard that I didn't even know was there, which is just, it's great to know, better than not.
Would you say it's shocking?
Oh, no. I'm not gonna say it.
You're like, I'm not gonna
indulge you.
That's right.
It just makes them worse. But this was not the only shocking report that we got about power lines. This one, which I believe is just called Oregon Mop-Up Power Line Incident, they roll up on, it reported, you know, smoke, reported vegetation fire, and it's just burned areas at the base of some power poles. which is interesting. I wouldn't really know what to make of that.
Yeah, so you roll up and it's a series of black circles at the base of multiple power lines.
Multiple power poles, and they're not very big.
Yeah, yeah.
The biggest one was 40 feet by 15 feet, so not very big,
sure.
Right? And probably pretty easy to just spray them out, like fuels. They had the power shut off, good deal. They put it out, go home, come back the next day to check it.
Just to check, right? It's just kind of like protocol, right? Like, every fire we
go
have.
Out and check that thing. Got to go call it out at some point. Yeah. They go out there. So the power has since been restored because, the work is largely done. And somebody hears some like sizzling, buzzing. And so they crouch down and investigate. And then as they stand up, put their hand on the pole, again, a wooden pole, and they get zapped when they touch the wooden pole.
And if I recall right, they do that crouching to investigate because it's like, that's weird. It seems like, I think they said they saw boiling water.
Yes, that's right. Boiling. Yes.
And then hearing the sound, and what they realized was like, oh, this is a dangerous scenario. So they're standing up to kind of start the react, give people the heads up, but just out of a normal process of standing up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because you're kneeling down, and in that realization phase, they just happen to brace themselves almost out as not a intentional thing, but just as that's how you stand up.
Yeah.
And they go to brace and touch the power pole and get shocked. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. Because
I can totally see myself just like, what's that sound or whatever, let me get closer. And then there's that moment where you're starting to put things together, and I think it'd be real easy to use hindsight to be like, well, in that instance, they should have just made a verbal warning and,
bunny hopped away.
But yeah, bunny hopped away. I don't, that's not how I'm going to react. I'm going to be like, whoa, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to stand up.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, reaching out, even if you, like, I will say this, if there was a down line, or maybe not even that, or a something metal right there.
Sure.
I would think, you can't prove it, but I would think that when they do involuntarily reach out, they are going to avoid that.
Yeah.
And go for the wood pull. Again, like, because I think we all, to the extent that we know about electricity, I guess, I don't know a ton. I know a little bit, not very much. But again, I don't think of wood as being something that I'm going to be afraid of touching in a metal, in an electrical scenario, And I guess to add that kind of final piece to the puzzle, maybe you alluded to it when you talked about there being boiling water, right? Like, I think though the presence of water, of moisture in this case, was a contributing factor. The fact that the ground was wet from having sprayed water, probably the wooden pole itself was wet. I think that was probably also a piece to this puzzle.
Yeah. And if if you do understand all of that stuff, you can describe, exactly what it has to do with grounding and whatever, all that stuff that I don't know. My awareness around it is just like, hey, I'm going to go put fires out. I know how to do that. If there's electricity involved, I stay away.
Yeah.
Or in these cases, I'm just like, kind of think of it. But again, I was here yesterday, right? I came in yesterday. We put these fires out.
Yep.
We're just here to check on them today. So it's already like, it doesn't actually make sense as you show up, and then there's sounds, you know what I mean?
Very strange. Yeah.
And, but again, they got the engine captain out and describe some really like, and this is that weird thing about electricity. They're agitated and just that, like, you don't feel right.
Right.
Which makes sense because, like, you got some, some electrical current through you that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I think both of these, unfortunately, it's a fairly common thing. But, we put them on social media for awareness. And then there's always people that want to chime in and be like, well, clearly they don't understand, or, they made bad decisions, whatever. It's just like negative couch comment, keyboard warrior stuff that is just like, give me a break, man. Be better than that, and empathetic, and it's just that hindsight stuff is just and again, we can't discount the good examples, because there's plenty of other people that are just like, wow, I'm glad everybody's okay. That's surprising. More of the what we prefer. And I think it's more conducive to learning and improving and furthering the mission in terms of the Lessons Learned Center. But that negative, oh, those guys are stupid, and they ignored all the basic safety stuff. I just don't see any benefit in that.
No. And how do you like this? It short circuits learning.
Oh, man.
Because you're saying, oh, I already know this hazard and these people didn't, so wouldn't happen to me, they're dumb, moving on. How many people that saw that then went to the website and actually read the report and could honestly say, yes, I did know that that a tree that happens to be growing in power lines could actually present a shock risk to me. I mean, maybe.
And even if they did, did they think to write that up and share it with people?
Yeah, exactly.
If you know,
and does the attitude of you discovering this, having not known it before, and sharing it with the world makes you an idiot? I don't think so, actually.
And I think that's a bigger problem. That doesn't have to do specifically with outlier events, but it's just something that I noticed.
Probably commonality in social media.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah. Anything else on these electrical incidents, or
no? I think we have incidents in the past, but like you said, it has to do with like downed power lines, or those types of things. And there definitely has been fatalities associated with, and it's usually either downed power lines or power lines falling. But these were a little bit new, so it's just good to call attention to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So this year we also got 2 reports, both from the state of Alaska, or I should say they happened in the state of Alaska. That involved airboats. We had an airboat collision, and then we had an airboat sink. So I can give it the initial information, or is kind of a brief summary of this. The 98 fire, which you will find on our website by spelling it all out, 98. This was 2 airboats that were transporting firefighters, and they hit each other. 5 firefighters thrown into the water. They all, get the initial assessment of their condition. 3 of them ended up going to the hospital, and 1 had some significant injuries. What do you have to say about the 98 fire?
What it immediately makes me think of is just boating, right? Just like it sounds, for some reason, it's like, oh, we got a incident report that has to do with boats. Then you start thinking about it, it's like, well, actually there's quite a bit of boating. Like, I have used boats on numerous fire assignments in different parts of the world.
Absolutely.
And so firefighters being transported on boats is probably more common than it appears.
I think so. Yeah.
And then the thing about them all ending up in the water makes me just feel like that's an additional hazard. Like when we have a crew buggy roll over or something like that, you know what I mean? It's just like you then deal with the injured. And there's all kinds of crazy bad stuff that could happen. You could get pinned and or ejected, you know what I mean? Like super bad stuff.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be dealing with potential hypothermia. I mean, I guess you could if it's a cold environment or whatever. But that's not usually when the crew buggies are driving around.
Right.
But that's the whole thing about like, oh my gosh, that's crazy because you have this accident and then now you've got people in the water.
Right. You have to get them out of the water first.
Yeah, like rescue involves now. It's like now, and water rescue is a thing. That's a skill that only certain people have, right? But it's also one of those ones where it's like that's how additional victims, people that weren't initially involved, want to help, so they go in the water. And what are a bunch of firefighters going to do if they see other firefighters in the water? They're going to go get them.
They're going in. Yeah.
And so immediately, and maybe that's my safety officer thing, I'm just like, oh wow, I hadn't put as much thought into that as I probably should have.
Right.
It's just the what happens when we end up with a bunch of people in the water, and some of them are injured.
Right, exactly. And that's even worse, right? It's bad enough if you just have a bunch of people in the water, particularly if there's some current, or it's really cold, like you said, oh my gosh. But now, if they can't, maybe they're not real good at swimming right now because they have limbs broken, or oh my gosh.
Or conscious, you know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff. So that, I was just like, oh man, maybe that's an area that like we could probably do a little bit better job of emergency planning around that kind of stuff. And then there's the actual thing. And of course, these are airboats, and usually airboats operate in shallow water. So in most cases, if you end up in the water where there's an airboat in use, you probably you stand up. Not always, but I mean, you know what I mean? That's kind of the conditions there. That's fair to recognize. But still, like, people got seriously hurt.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the added thing of probably the reason why you're using boats to transport people is because that's the way to do it. Yeah. Meaning there's probably not roads.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Exactly.
Meaning extraction is going to be,
but yeah,
by boat.
A little bit complicated, probably. Yeah. Right.
By or boat. Aviation.
Yeah.
And so that it's layers, and then they totally got into that in this 98 about like, hey, what helicopter do we use? And especially, and it's fairly standard Alaska operations, right? You've got lots of fires spread out over a large area, so you're sharing resources. Helicopters might not be assigned to a specific incident. They're supporting multiple incidents because that's what you have to do in those cases, right? And if that's not your experience, it might seem weird to you to say, like, wait, we didn't have a helicopter dedicated just to us? It's like, well, we don't have that many helicopters. Or using a commercial air ambulance isn't even an option.
No, right.
That
you're just too remote.
Yeah. And like, how detailed do we expect a medical response plan to be from a ad hoc type 3 organization? You know what I mean? And maybe our expectations should be higher. But when I think of an ad hoc type 3 organization, it's like, a bunch of us just got together and be like, all right, let's deal with this fire. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's just different. And you don't have access to the types of resources or pull or whatever. It's just it's just all a smaller stuff.
And prioritization too that happens, right? I mean, some little super remote or even big super remote fire in Alaska probably not going to be, unless it's the only thing going in the whole country, it's not at the top of the list,
For sure. But that's all additional things. Again, back to the boating. I just feel like, and that, so that came in and was just like, oh wow, that's crazy. We had, that makes sense. Every so often we're going to have something like that. And wow, we put firefighters in boats all the time. And in my experience, the briefing was just like, wear the life vest, or the, the PFD or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's it, really. I remember we had to cross a river. We had to cross the Klamath River, I think, in a raft, maybe in a Scott River. I don't remember. That was the first time I'd ever done that, and I don't remember a briefing. There probably was one though. I bet it was that. Just like, put this on.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh boy, I get to be in a boat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Step here, don't step here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That kind of stuff, and maybe that's plenty. But man, if people end up in the water, like which is clearly a possibility.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
I mean, I think it'll change my perspective the next time I go to, and I've totally been on that scenario, right? I was a division supervisor in Alaska, and we had a task force leader that just ran the boats.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And it was probably the most crucial position on the fire.
Wow.
Because that's the only way you could get to where the work needed to be done. But you had to coordinate with, the boat wrangler. And it was awesome because it was a lot of the boat operators were all the local folks that know the water, know the land, know the, what I mean? And they're living there, and they're just like, oh, you guys need some help. Yeah. I'll come on, and they pay them, which is usually a pretty good deal. For them to get some work on the fire, and they know that, like, man, what a great resource.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like if they're like local guides,
yeah,
that's huge. Yeah.
And then and they're navigating the waterways the way that they normally would, but because of the fire, it's possible that there's traffic on those waterways that isn't usually there, or you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different complexities, and the way that they operate might not be the way that, like, fire systems, especially government, you know what I mean, or ways that, you know what I mean? It's like, well, did you do a risk analysis? Like, yeah, I bet you they did, but I bet you their risk analysis doesn't look like yours.
Yeah.
It's probably not written down,
That's right.
Yeah, it looks like we shouldn't go out today. That's enough for me.
Exactly.
And anyway, I think that there's good stuff to talk about there. But anyway, just more awareness around when we put our folks on boats. And so that came in, that was kind of alarming. And then not very long after that, another one came in.
Yeah. Also with airboats. Yeah. And this one was not on a fire. It was doing some National Forest resource type work. It was like a fish survey, I believe, that was going on. But again, an airboat operating in Alaska. This time it was out actually in a bay, so like the mouth of a river where it meets the sea, the Bering Sea, I believe, because it said it was at the mouth of the Bering River. And I only know about the Bering Sea from Deadliest Catch, so I know it's very dangerous. And
it has the word deadly in it.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But so they have some resource folks, some fish biologists, techs or whatever in this airboat, and they're being supported by a fishing vessel, kind of not one of the big Deadliest Catch ones, more like a smaller one, wooden one, with the like outriggers,
like a dangerous catch, not deadly.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah. Oh my god. And I won't get into naming all the boats that I know the name. Anyway, so they're kind of pulling up from doing some work of reducing engine power, and as but
the work is upriver. That's why they're using an airboat.
Oh, right.
And then,
that's right, because they're coming off of. Okay.
Right. Yes. So the work they're doing is on the river. That's why they're using the airboat.
Right. Okay.
All right. And then it's at the end of the shift or whatever, and they're coming back. out of the river
to their support
Yeah,
boat, which
yeah.
is out in the bay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like they weren't doing the work from an airboat out in the bay, out in basically
Yes,
like
exactly.
ocean.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because
No,
that's not
exactly.
the right piece of equipment for that work.
Yeah, super shallow draft and
Yeah.
flat bottom
Yeah,
and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for pointing it out. Yeah. And as they're kind of reducing engine power, there is a little bit of a like a chop on the bay, like 1.5, 2 foot waves, and so the boat kind of settles into the water a little bit, and right as it does, they get immediately inundated by a wave, which not like a gigantic rogue wave or anything, but enough. And then it says within 15 seconds of that happening, another wave hits them, and then it starts sinking, and everybody's in the water.
Yeah.
So real fast. Yeah.
And again, it's like, okay, so you're driving down the road and then your fuel line breaks and you don't have power. Or maybe not. Maybe it gets bumpy. I don't know. Something happens. But this is like, okay, something
Your car
happened.
doesn't sink.
Yeah, your car doesn't, like, I mean, I guess if it's a sinkhole these days, like, it could actually sink. But yeah, now you just deal with the broken vehicle.
Yeah.
Or the damaged vehicle or whatever. But like, man,
Yeah.
people are in the water now. The emergency, like, who cares about the boat?
Yeah, it's going down, whatever.
Gone.
But you got people in seawater now.
Potentially cold, all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's,
Absolutely.
Next level stuff. And right away, of course, you go like, was there anybody that was like, well, why do we have to wear these PFDs? Not because of that.
Exactly.
So there's that. But then now, like, you are dependent on, for the most part, you're dependent on rescue in a lot of those cases.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think in this case it differs from the previous case, from the '98 fire, because it wasn't a kind of collision or traumatic event that caused them to be in the water, so they weren't injured. I think they just kind of, like, the boat started to go under and they got off of it. But regardless, I mean, yeah, you're talking about Alaska water. It's just pretty darn cold, and they're not in the river. They're actually out, in sort of part of the Bering Sea. So, yeah, they need to be rescued. And they did some, they kind of followed their training really well, and all clustered together so that they could be rescued sort of at once versus being off, one person here, one person there, whatever, and having to find them, and maybe they're drifting away, all that stuff. So they did a good job, and I think the rescue was pretty quick. And
the rescue was from the support vessel, right? Because they
which saw it happen.
Yeah, like, best case scenario.
Absolutely, yeah, best case scenario. Yeah, and I like this one. It's a very different. We don't always, we'll sometimes publish things that are not directly involved with, though, this happened on a wildland fire or this was a wildland fire crew or whatever. But in those cases where it just kind of fills an obvious sort of gap of where we have similar or where we use a similar tool, or there are really applicable lessons that we haven't seen necessarily. And in this case, we had this '98 fire, the report that had happened, and then we get this, and it's like, okay, we need to let's kind of round out this boating stuff, because we haven't really gotten a lot of boating stuff. I mean, I would have said that I remember Pagami, right?
Yeah.
In Minnesota, that was a big boating one. But I mean, other than that, I can't think of that many that we have.
We do have other ones where people are tossed out of canoes in the same area, right? I think it's Boundary Waters type.
Oh, Boundary Waters, yeah.
And because it's such a used, but I remember it wasn't a fire. Pagami was like an entrapment.
Yeah,
Complicated
it was
by
entrapment.
the fact that they're they
They're
used,
on canoes.
yeah, they used boats to get to wherever they were, or a
Yeah.
seaplane, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have other ones where, like there was a fire crew out in a canoe, and water got rough, and they ended up in the just capsizing a canoe. And so yeah, that's funny. I hadn't thought about that for a while, but you were saying, like, pulling on that thread, right? Like, hey, we don't have a whole
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
boating things, yet it's not a completely uncommon thing to use boats in support of wildfires.
No. No, no, and I feel like I saw it more this year for whatever reason. I guess just where fires were. I feel like I saw it more this season than I've really noticed in the past. I know we saw it here in Northern California because there was a fire up on Shasta Lake, and so they were bringing people in on big landing craft like World War II landing craft, and then there were these Alaska ones, and yeah, it is
Pacific
it is definitely
Northwest,
out
man.
there.
Like, if you want to go to whatever, if you want to go to Stehekin,
Yeah, you're in a boat. That's true.
for the most part,
That's
you
true.
can hike
Or a
there,
long
but
walk.
long walk. If you're going up for a fire, chances are you're in a boat.
Yeah, that's a boat.
And but so Pacific Northwest, like we sometimes, yeah, like we've done prescribed fire on an island.
Yeah.
They're not going to fly us there, most likely. Boats are a thing we use, and it would be really good for us to take every chance we can to learn about these lessons, especially when things are, the unplanned happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we could just tell ourselves to expect the unexpected. Then we're covered.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were expecting it.
Yeah.
What did we do? I don't know, but we expected it.
I thought that could happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like as
the Titanic is sinking around you.
I knew that could happen.
I expected this. Okay, sir.
Yeah. As your last words.
Yeah.
I expected this. Please write that down.
Oh.
All right. Anything else on boats?
I don't think so. There's some good lessons in there, and I like that the lessons actually between the two are kind of similar. It has a lot to do with communication and high visibility stuff, and it almost reminded me of not exactly, but almost reminded me of the way that we have aviation kind of organized, right? You have you have a bunch of helicopters, you're probably going to get a helicopter coordinator, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, if you're using these things a lot and there's a bunch of them, then you probably want to have some kind of an organization set up to coordinate and to have communication that's ongoing. I mean, there was also talk, like you mentioned, there potentially being other traffic that if you're a guide on this river, you don't necessarily expect that, or it hasn't been your experience in the past, or maybe it's just different. Everybody's acting differently than they would in a normal non-fire situation. And so kind of having those protocols set up, and calling in the blind was one that they mentioned, which also reminds me of helicopters. Like as they come into the dip, they just call.
Sure.
Whether there's anybody there or not, they're just going to call.
I mean, we do that on roads, right? Like just narrow roads.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. If narrow, dusty road, just, hey, we're coming out this road, just to make sure that people know.
Mile marker, call outs, all of that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So, yeah, I think that it's worth, and that's what I will do if I go someplace and there's a whole bunch of things. I'd be like, okay, this boating thing is an operation in itself.
Yeah.
And it might be the thing that I need to do a lot of thought and risk management kind of mitigations around, because that might be the thing. And then also the planning for if the bad thing happens in the water, what's the reality? What is it that we, and that might drive operations, right? They talked about it in the 98, that like maybe the crews don't get to come on as early as they want if that's the trade-off, because there's not a helicopter to support them until 0800 or whatever or there's only certain types of work that you can do until then, whatever, you know what I mean? And sometimes we need to make those trade-offs and adjust the type of work that the exposure that we are taking on based on our capacity to respond to the bad thing.
The bad thing. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, good stuff. What else? What do we got?
Right. So the last topic was trees falling in camp.
Ooh.
And I'd be interested to know how often this does happen. Because we did after we got this one, which was Aggie Creek Spike Camp, also up in Alaska. We did a search through the database to see what other reports that we had in there of trees falling in camp, and we really only had one that was kind of a real similar scenario. But I think this does happen actually quite a bit, and this is a case of it being an outlier in that it was reported, not being an outlier in that it happened. So what happened here was there was a spike camp on a fire in Alaska. They'd been using it for several weeks, but there was a little bit of a gap where the crew that had been staying there, I think they demobed, like they were done. And so there wasn't anybody there for a few days. And while it was vacant, I think a safety officer and a landowner, maybe somebody else, is it a division maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a spike camp manager or somebody from logistics, or I don't know, some other.
It was something like that. Yeah. Overhead. They take a look and they identify a hazard that the landowner said had actually been there for like 2 or 3 years, but I'm guessing he just like had to put it out of his mind, like just wasn't thinking about it. But basically it was a pretty big spruce snag that was leaning and being held up by a green tree. And they couldn't immediately mitigate it because there was some other stuff in the way. They'd have to move that, and it would be this whole operation. And so a couple days later, a wildland fire module gets assigned to the fire. They are going to start using this spike camp, and at 4 a.m, that green tree breaks, or the top breaks out, and that snag comes and falls right into camp. Very, very, very fortunate outcome that only this, basically a piece of the top was like 2 inches in diameter, ended up hitting one of the tents and causing some bruising, but otherwise no one was injured. But man, really one that could have a completely different outcome, particularly when you look at the photos that are a part of that report. It wasn't like, it fell right next to camp. It was like, no, it fell right in the middle of camp. There's tents on either side.
There's tents on the other side. That was what I was going to point out. I look at that thing and I'm just like, when I first looked at it, I was just like, what's the big deal? They set their tents up over here and over here. And then I'm like, oh, that tree wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When they set
the tents up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really freaky. And, when we were looking for, because we ultimately, you drafted a blog post and we published that a few weeks ago about this phenomenon. And the only other report that we have of something real similar happening was back in like 2003 on a national forest in California, where they were doing some kind of post-fire recovery work. So the area had been burned in 2001, and there were snags, here and there from the fire. And in that case, when the snag came down in the middle of the night, it hit the tent directly and actually killed the person inside just immediately. So, that's the kind of thing that could happen. Yeah, real scary thing. Yeah. What are your thoughts on trees in camp?
That's super hard, or maybe it's not, because I can empathize with that scenario where we've had people there, maybe the land use agreement's already working, we've had people sleeping here for weeks, right? And then maybe it's a new safety officer, maybe it's, whatever, and there's nobody there now, and they go, hey, look at that thing, that doesn't look good. And we could just I think the hindsight version of it is, well, oh, clearly if you're going to have people sleep there, just cut those trees.
Yeah.
But there was course. That sawmill, or you know what I mean, was in the way.
That's what it was.
And it's like, well, we're not going to dump these trees on this guy's sawmill, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And to move it, and then somebody says, well, geez, it's been sitting there for how long? Is it really?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Like, it's probably pretty firmly in that tree, right? Like, it's secure. It's probably not going to come out. What are the odds?
Right. Exactly. I could totally. It'll probably be all right, right? Like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's just an easy thing to think and say, and it's not completely unfounded. I think.
No.
Chances are it's probably going to be all right. But man, then you see that tree on the tent, and it's just like. Yeah, that would be rough. And so the easy thing, and it says that's one of the lessons, is just like, hey man, when there's a question, just deal with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes circumstances might make that, in some cases it might be a no-brainer. It might just be like, yeah, let's just have people sleep someplace else, because there's lots of other available options. If there's not, then you
that's
have to,
the problem.
That it gets hard. And I think it's always you have to be willing to be that person, right?
That's right. That's right.
And
I was on a fire in California a few years ago, and in camp, I think we were probably on a fairgrounds or something like that, but there were a lot of oak trees all over. And just during the day, one day, maybe it was a little bit windy, I don't know. Oak trees, they tend to drop limbs sometimes, and oak is very heavy. And I recall it being a Jeep. I don't really remember, but it definitely hit a car and messed it up. And then immediately after that, the team said, okay, everybody who's sleeping, you need to not be under these oak trees. And, it was kind of like an oak savanna type thing. Like, it wasn't like a forest. It was they were here and there. And so it actually did involve like quite a few people kind of moving their tents out from near these oak trees. And I could see people potentially rolling their eyes at that or something, but
I want to sleep under the trees. I like
versus just out in the open.
I can relate to that. Like, I don't want to
exactly.
But it's that, being willing to be that person, and then just like that one that you highlighted from that fatality. It's just like, man, we don't want that. That's terrifying.
No.
And it is surprising when you think about it, that as often as we get hit by trees in general, like on fires, it actually kind of baffles me that it doesn't happen more in camp. Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. I think it is very surprising, actually. There's reasons you could come up with, but with having as many people sleeping outside as we do, I agree.
And it's also possible that it goes back to that reporting thing. Maybe it's not a thing when we come back to camp and somebody's tent is crushed by a tree. It's not something we think to report.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Yeah.
And I've definitely seen that happen where, maybe it wasn't a direct hit, but like a branch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was on a lightning fire, and real high up in a place also that had burned. There were remnant snags, which at that point were quite old. And I just laid my tent out somewhere, or not tent, my sleeping bag out somewhere that made sense. And in the middle of the night, heard this breaking, that sound. And I was like, oh, and then the slam, thud, all that when it hit the ground. Obviously didn't hit me. So the next morning when I got up and looked around, when it was light enough, I walked over to try to find it. It was very close, but it was aimed exactly the other way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I learned my lesson then for sure, to really pay attention to where I'm sleeping. But that was a near miss that certainly didn't report it.
Yeah. Which I think is worth it. Like if you're out there, I think that's not a bad thing to just tell that story, you know. And I think enough of us have those. I know I have set up my tent and then realized, and then I'm just like, and I have gone through the trouble of moving my tent.
Yeah,
because I realize it. I'm just like, dang, that was a good spot until I saw that. And now I can't think of anything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and move because there's other options.
And every time you hear the wind rustling, you're going to worry all night long.
So yeah, I think that's just one of those ones. Just like, man, the potential's out there. We need to think about it. And if you're on the receiving end of it, if you're the person that the safety officer says, nope, nobody can sleep in this sweet sleeping spot because this. Like, try to be gracious. Try to they're coming from a caring place, and maybe you don't get the choice spot. And then also volunteer to do the work. I think that's the other thing. It's just like hey, if we need to move the sawmill and it's going to take a day to kind of take it apart, move it around, drop the tree, put it back where it's placed. You know what I mean? Especially if it's going to be helpful to a landowner. I think that that might actually be a good thing. Maybe they want those trees on the ground.
Yeah, true. Right.
And that kind of stuff. And I think we can always volunteer. How is it that we can be helpful in the situation? And pointing things out, not to be like, look at me, look how observant I am. I found that there's snags in it. You know what I mean? It's like, do it in a way that where you can help mitigate it. And I think if we're all, maybe that's what's happening. Maybe everybody is looking out for each other, and that's why we don't see it. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
it could be.
It could be. I'm preaching to the choir. People are like, yeah,
exactly.
I deal with that all the time.
Just skipping ahead. Yeah, I already know this.
Yeah,
we do this all the time. Yeah.
So, anyway, those are good things to keep in mind. I remember we had a couple other. There's the snake on the helicopter. There's the exploding cans. You remember that?
Yeah.
It's like the canned air that is used to for dusting.
Yeah, exactly.
Either in your vehicle or your keyboard or whatever. And in 1 year we had 2 instances of them exploding. But one of them went through a windshield of a rig. Like it was, I can't remember if it was on the dash or if it was on the seat or something like that, but just heat.
And it's just shocking.
Yeah. And of course there was nobody in the rig at the time. Like happy accident, whatever. But can you imagine if that would have hit somebody's arm? I mean, it had enough power to go through a windshield.
Right. Exactly. I think that's a broken bone. I would think.
Yeah. And the other one blew the it was in a Pelican case.
Oh, right.
And it broke one of the latches on the Pelican case. So again, had that gone into someone's calf or something like that. So.
A lot of power.
Yeah.
I think about the guy who was backing the engine and fell into a septic tank. I mean, again, what are the odds?
What are the odds? It's not something when I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back the engine. Let me go scan the area first and make sure there's not this random open hole. That's not a process I use. I'm just like, okay, I gotta go back and do the backing signals again.
Exactly.
I'm halfway attentive. Just in general, if I'm the person doing the backing, I should be more. Again, backing. We've had people run into things with a backer.
With a backer, yeah, totally.
So yeah. Crazy things happen, and the answer is not always better essay.
No, or this was foreseeable. You should have known.
Yeah.
Because some of these are I would say sort of known hazards. Like people get hit by trees. That we know about that hazard. it happening in camp is like you said. I mean, it's so rare that it's probably not at the top of mind. But I think something like, again, I mean, not to harp on it too much, but going back to those electrical ones, you know, I would venture to say that for the vast majority of us, that's not even a known hazard.
Yeah.
So yeah, just situational awareness. I guess this helps with situational awareness now. But yeah, I don't expect that was something that they would immediately flag and say, aha, we need to call the power company and get this power shut off immediately because the power line is touching trees. That's not really a process that we have. So what are the lessons?
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's the individual ones, right? There's the things that have to do with each specific event.
Right.
Wear your personal flotation device and make friends with the power company, and you know, go ahead and cut the tree down if that's an option, or move where you're sleeping. You know, real specific things. And then there's the broader one. It's just like, hey, how do we deal with outliers and that kind of stuff? And I think there's something about reporting in there.
Totally agree.
Because that is how we build SA, especially if you are going to be a person that's like, well, you got to keep your head on a swivel and expect the unexpected. If that's your approach, then help us build our SA by sharing these types of events, so that we can, you know what I mean, do this. And then I think there's the recency thing, right? Like we put this out there, somebody listens to the podcast, they're going to be dialed on it for a certain amount of time, and then it's going to diminish. Absolutely. And maybe it's our job to re-highlight those things every so often. I think that's like the gold standard lessons learned center is we would track everything, and then we'd be like, hey, we haven't touched on this for a while. You know what I mean? Like
rotation.
Exactly. Having a rotation, and, you know, surprise, surprise, we're not that dialed. But when things come up, we go, oh, actually, you know, we are paying attention enough to say like, oh, this is probably a good thing to get on people's radar. And I think you can do that with on a local scale too, right? Is when you get reminders from your environment and you have some background in it, well, or even just curiosity, right? You can, you know, stories are really good. That's where experience is helpful. And then other times it's just a curiosity, just like, oh wow, maybe we should look into that, like, and pulling on the thread of whatever that is can help raise your knowledge and ultimately abilities to deal with some of these things. Because like our workforce is amazing. You know, you just start throwing some stuff out there. You get 5 people together and say, hey, let's talk about power lines and fires. And before you know it, like there's such good lessons. Somebody's like, oh yeah, my uncle works for.
Exactly. Exactly.
Maybe I'll just call him, see what he has to say. And you know, like that stuff's amazing. We have such a power to learn. So I don't have a succinct way to say what the lessons are. All that I just said.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And I think, you know, that part of expecting the unexpected is preparing for the things that might happen in situations where you're not. It might even be a hazard or a medical emergency or something like that you actually are kind of thinking it's a possibility on the fire, but you're expecting it on the line and not in camp and not in the middle of the night. And so maybe having that plan as well, which I think we are getting better at, just anecdotally maybe from what I've seen reported to us, but having those like, all right, so what's the plan if someone wakes up and they're having a heart attack, or if a tree falls in camp in the middle of the night in a spike camp? What are we going to do? How are we going to activate our resources? What is that going to look like? The notification process. What resources are available to us in the middle of the night that we know for sure they'd probably be there in the day, but at nighttime, obviously things are a different story. So setting those kinds of things up, we're never going to be able to expect everything, and weird stuff happens that we've never seen before. But having some kind of system to take that on, basically.
Yeah, and I do think that what's the plan for the middle of the night emergency? That's a real solid one that, especially in spike camp type scenarios or whatever, dispersed kind of stuff, or
and again,
early stages of an ICP or whatever.
Yeah, right. Exactly. When it's not, super set up in the way that it will be eventually. Yeah. And I think also anecdotally, I do think that it's possible we're having more night operations than we did when I started 20 years ago, when we had really gone away from that. I think, I think we're coming back to it in the push to aggressively initial attack, and having the difficulties that we've been having in the last, say 10 years. I feel like we're doing a lot more at night. So maybe that's increasing our capacity to deal with those things at night. That would be cool if that were the case. I'm not sure if it is or not.
Yeah. I would imagine that if there is a night shift, there is, along with that, better capacity to deal, because then there's probably somebody in the comms tent, and there's
exactly,
you know what I mean, all of that kind of stuff trickles over. Like you said, maybe that's a good thing. You're such an optimist, Erik.
Oh my God, you're the first person who's ever said that. Yeah.
Right on. And then the last thing is just like straight up a plug for reporting. That's how we know about this stuff. It's such good practice to share stories like this, and for us to get those things out there, because it's you never know what your story, how it can help other people, and those lessons, what they trigger. And you see some of those pictures, like that tree in the middle of man, that is a powerful image.
Those are the kinds of things that are going to stick with people. I think it sticks with me.
You save a life, tell a story, save a life. I don't know, something like that.
I love that. Yeah. Could have shirts like American Red Cross giving blood. Yeah. No, I think so. And it's like, if you do the AAR at the end of the shift, and it's sort of like, there's a lot of AARs that are pretty normal, or nothing too out of the ordinary happened at all. But you have one where you're like, this thing happened, and this is how we responded to it, and we weren't expecting it, or it was weird, hadn't really heard of it before, blah blah blah. That's a great time to get on over to lessons.wildfire.gov and submit a lesson.
There you go.
Because you talked about it, you shared it internally. Now you can share it with the rest of your friends out in the wildland fire world.
Here's your chance to be an influencer.
Oh no. That's right.
All right. I think that is all we got. Thanks a bunch for thanks for the time and the thoughts, Erik.
No, thank you, Travis. Always a great time to talk to you. So, how do you think about outliers in your wildland fire career? Are there lessons you have in your head that you could share with your crew? Remember that reporting is critical in understanding the risk environment in wildland fire, and that your experiences and your lessons can save someone else a lot of trouble. This applies to those unusual things that may happen to you, especially when they highlight a hazard and mitigations we don't often talk about. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Wildfire Lessons podcast. Don't forget to head on over to lessons.wildfire.gov to get all the latest information from the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. You can subscribe to our email list and follow us on social media. Music is provided by second-generation smoke jumper Steve Baker, who always likes to keep one foot in the black. Thanks, Steve. Remember, we honor through learning.